Hello there guys and welcome to Saturday's live stream. I'm JWF1 and we are here for race 1 here at Belle Isle Park here in Detroit, Michigan for round 5 of the Season 4-5 IFMC IndyCar Championship. And if you didn't see what happened in qualifying yesterday, it was a very interesting qualifying session. In the end though, Joseph Newgarden took his second pole position of his career, target Andy Graham's first ever pole as well, as I found out yesterday as well. And he'll be taking pole position ahead of Ryan Hunter-Reay, continuing the momentum he had at Texas to qualify in second, and Simon Pagenaud in the Silicon Valley racing car rounded off the top 3. We've got 70 laps in front of us here for race 1. It'll also be 70 laps tomorrow for race 2 as well. Just to let you guys know, the grid for race 2 will be determined by the results of today's race, with the top 10 being reversed. So, as you can see, we're all set to go for 70 laps here for race 1. So before we start then guys, let's mute this, turn this up a little, and let's have a look at the grid for today's race here at Detroit for race 1. Oh, hang on. Try again. Here we go then. So on pole position is Joseph Newgarden with Ryan Hunter-Reay second. Simon Pagenaud lines up in third with James Hinchcliffe in fourth. Ed Jones lines up in fifth with defending champion Sebastian Bourdais in sixth. Robert Wickens lines up in seventh with Fernando Alonso in eighth. Scott Dixon lines up in 9th with Alexander Rossi in the Fantari car, rounding off the top 10. 11th goes to Will Power, 12th for Helio Castroneves in the other East Midlands racing car. 13th on the grid is championship leader J.R. Hildebrand. A lot of work to do for him. He's joined by Max Chilton, who starts 14th. Marco Andretti is 15th with Pietro Fittipaldi in 16th position. Graham Rahal is 17th with Tony Kanaan with a lot to do in 18th. 19th on the grid is Gabby Chavez, followed by Juan Pablo Montoya in 20th. And then on the back row of the grid, it's Takuma Sato, and due to his qualifying ban, Felix Rosenquist is 22nd and last. And that is the grid for race 1 here at Detroit. So there is the grid then guys for race 1 here at Detroit, with the weather of course being bright and sunny. So leave your predictions, but without further ado, let's get to race 1 here at Detroit. So here we go then. Here we are then on the grid then. It's Newgarden on the right. It is Ryan Hunter-Reay on the left, if we were looking the other way of course, as we wait for the 5 red lights to go off to signify the start of race 1 here at Detroit. And for 70 laps coming your way, 1 light is on, 2 lights are on, 3 lights are on, 4 lights are on, 5 lights are on. And it is go for race 1 here at Belle Isle Park, and it seems to be a good start from Pagenaud, who seems to get alongside Ryan Hunter-Reay to the first corner. But look at this, James Hinchcliffe has gone the inside the pair of them and gets into second place himself. A fantastic start for him. Bourdais has had a good start. He's got the jump on Ed Jones at the start. He's up to 5th, as is Alonso. So Jones loses 2 places at the start, as Bourdais trying to carry the momentum on Simon Pagenaud in front. Meantime at the front, Hinchcliffe down the inside of Joseph Newgarden, and he takes the lead. James Hinchcliffe leads at Belle Isle Park. They've got Ryan Hunter-Reay right behind them as well. Ryan Hunter-Reay tried to have a look there at Newgarden, wasn't able to make the move stick there, as 2 cars are right behind Simon Pagenaud at this stage. Good start from Castroneves. He's up to 8th after only qualifying from 12th on the grid. Everybody seems to get through the first couple of corners safely. No incidents to report whatsoever. Sato, the man who won last time out, brings out the rear of the field, but it's Hinchcliffe who leads. But Newgarden has not finished with him left. He's in the slipstream, but isn't quite close enough to make a move there. Ryan Hunter-Reay has dropped back a bit from these two, as Pagenaud tries to close him in as well with the other 2 cars that are stuck behind him as well. Jones looks like he's also trying to get back into that mix as well, as now we go through the double left-hander now. Then for the first time today, Newgarden trying to cling on to the back of Hinchcliffe as much as he can, the man who replaced him at Martini for this season. Newgarden trying to grab the lead back if he can, heading down towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack now. Then as we ride on board with Newgarden, round these corners we go. Ryan Hunter-Reay closing back into this scrap as well. It looks like Hunter-Reay's getting close to Newgarden, as much as what Newgarden is closing into Hinchcliffe. But at the end of lap 1 then of 70 here at Detroit, is Ryan Hunter-Reay has a go at Newgarden, but Newgarden thinks better of it now. Then it's Hinchcliffe who leads, Newgarden second, Ryan Hunter-Reay third, Pagenaud 4th, Bourdais 5th, Alonso 6th, but Alonso's on the inside of Bourdais, but not quite. Bourdais shuts the door on him there then. It's Jones in 7th, Castroneves 8th, Dixon 9th, and Wickens rounds out the top 10. at this stage of the race. Meantime, look at close Ryan Hunter-Reay is in the back of Newgarden. He's going to go down the inside into turn number 3. Will Hunter-Reay pull the move off on Joseph Newgarden? Down the inside he goes. No, not quite. Newgarden able to hang it around the outside to hold on to second place. It brings Pagenaud a little bit closer. He's now created a gap between himself and Bourdais at this stage. Alonso under pressure from Jones. Looked like there was a little bit of a lock-up there from Pagenaud. In fact, no, it's Hunter-Reay. He's gone to the wall. Hunter-Reay is going to the wall, and we've got a huge crash. He's collected one of the Target Underground cars. That looks like he's collected Ed Jones with him as well. So we've got a huge crash down at turn number 4 and 5 on the racetrack now then. Let's have a look, and as you can see, Hunter-Reay gets some understeer, and then he's just understeered way wide into this corner, tries to stop the car in time, but he's just pushed him into the wall, and Jones was just essentially a passenger at this point. So both Ryan Hunter-Reay and Ed Jones are out of the race, and we're down to 20 runners already in this race now then. Everybody able to find a gap between these two to keep on going, as now the marshals try to attempt to clear these guys, and no, there's more contact now. One of the Macamo cars has lost the front wing, and that looks like Pietro Fittipaldi's the one that's got collected as well. Clearly was side by side and got a little bit pinched. So this incident will be investigated after the race, but I wouldn't be surprised if nothing comes out of it really. And to me it was just a racing incident, but we'll wait and see if the stewards have the same opinion, as Hinchcliffe has now pulled a gap between himself and Joseph Newgarden. Newgarden starting to fall behind a little bit, it must be said, but we are expecting a trip to the pits now then for Pietro Fittipaldi in the Macamo car, as he got collected by Hunter-Reay's stranded e-power car. So a chance for another podium has gone down the toilet for Ryan Hunter-Reay, and now we've got a massive battle for third between Pagenaud, Bourdais and Alonso now then, as Dixon tries to close himself up as well, up in 6th, as now Chilton rounds out the top 10 himself. As meantime now Bourdais has a go at Pagenaud for 3rd place, but Pagenaud shuts the door on him now. Then remember, Bourdais still yet to score a point. It's now putting prey to Fernando Alonso, but Alonso again gets the door shut by Sebastian Bourdais. Bourdais trying to get the momentum on Pagenaud down towards turn 3 if he can, trying to stick within the slipstream of the Frenchman now then, his fellow compatriot, as Pagenaud goes very defensive, but I don't think Bourdais was even close enough to mount an attack on him at this point, and he's going to remain behind him at this stage. Alonso with quite a bit of a gap behind, trying to close back in as much as possible. Meantime, Wickens is all over the back of Cachaneras, with Power also clinging onto the back of him at this stage. Chilton trying to get in the mix with that battle as well, down in 10th. He's made up 4 positions from his qualifying start, as Fittipaldi's in to repair that front wing. I won't be surprised now if that's probably a free stop, or maybe even a change of strategy from McCall. We'll wait and see. Meantime, Bourdais has a look to the inside of Pagenaud. Can he pull it off in his left-hander? But no, not quite. Pagenaud later on the brakes to hold on to the place, but it's compromised his entrance into this right-hander, and it's allowed Bourdais and Alonso to get back right in the clutches of him now then. Around we go then into this double left-hander on the track before approaching the 3rd to last turn on the track now then. Into the hairpin we go. We'll have a look at the fuel loads in a little bit now then, as Bourdais tries everything in his power to try and get through. Same with Alonso as well into the final 2 turns. As you can see, Pagenaud goes very defensive into that corner there then, so Pagenaud just able to hold off at the moment, and now it's pretty much bundled Bourdais and Alonso, and now it's put Dixon a little bit closer to the scrappers now. Now Bourdais looks to the inside again on Simon Pagenaud. Again, Pagenaud shuts the door. Can Alonso take full advantage? Try and get Bourdais into the first corner now then. He thought about going to the outside but thought better of it. Dixon now right up with this scrap as well. Cachaneras under threat from Robert Wickens. We've now got a 4-car scrap for the final podium, as Newgarden's also dropping back to this scrap as well, so it could even be a massive scrap for 2nd place, as now Bourdais looks to the inside of Simon Pagenaud. Can he pull the move off on his fellow compatriot? Down the inside he goes, as Dixon's on the inside of Alonso. Into the right-hander we go, as Bourdais got the pass, and yes he has. Bourdais up into 3rd place in the EMR, and Dixon unable to find a way through on Alonso. Alonso able to hang it around the outside to hold on to 5th place. Wickens unable to find a way through there on Helio Cachaneras, as E3 are also starting to close up on his massive battle as well, but Bourdais is up into 3rd place. Can he try and now get away from his fellow compatriot? But it looks like Pagenaud still sticking with him at this stage now then, as now heading down towards the left-hander now. Then Pagenaud looks at the inside of Sebastian Bourdais. Can he pull the move off? No, Bourdais shuts the door and holds on to the place. That surely would give Alonso a bit of an advantage, as it do with Dixon as well. As now into the left-hander we go, and looks like a little bit of understeer there from Bourdais. Had to correct it a little bit as he went into that corner. That brings Pagenaud back onto the prowl of him now then, but it looks like Alonso's more on the back of Pagenaud than what Pagenaud is to the back of Sebastian Bourdais at the moment, as Newgarden currently in 2nd. As meantime Hinchcliffe continues to lead the race at the moment with quite a strong lead at the front. And let's have a look at the fuel loads then. 20, 32.1, 20.2, 21, 22.1, 17.2, 18.2, 21.1, 18.2, 16.2, 17.1, 16.1, 17.2, 24.1, 21.1, 16.2, 16.2, 22.1, 17.1, 19.1, and 24.6 as Hinchcliffe's crashed! The race leader has crashed! Unbelievable! The race leader has crashed out of a comfortable lead. Joseph Newgarden retakes the lead here at Detroit. What on earth has happened to James Hinchcliffe? And he looks like he's just lost it a little bit. Maybe just lost some concentration, got on the grass, and has smacked it into the wall there. There was no mechanical problem, as you can see on the steering wheel. And a crash there from James Hinchcliffe after clipping the grass on the straight. And, well, I don't even know what was going on there with James Hinchcliffe steering. If you look at it, going down the straight now then. And, well, that was a bit of a weird one there from Hinchcliffe. I have no idea why he swerved onto the grass like that. But he's crashed out, and James Hinchcliffe, from a comfortable lead of the race, is out here in Detroit, and we're down to 19 runners. Joseph Newgarden resumes the lead in the Target Andy Graham racing car. Now we've got a massive scrap for second place. We're only into lap number 5 of the race, and it's all kicking off, really. I think we're on lap 5 anyway. Yeah, we're on lap 5 of the race and it's all kicking off. James Hinchcliffe out. We're down to 19 runners. And look at this. Look at this group of cars now as we're now all over the backside of Newgarden. Bourdais now into this scrap himself. Look at this huge gaggle of cars now scrapping it out for the lead. Looks like Newgarden must have had some understeer going into turn 3 there. And it's brought Bourdais now a lot closer to this scrap as he comes down towards the left-hander on the racetrack now then. Can Bourdais try and find a way through on Newgarden for the lead of the race? As he's right in the slipstream, he's going to look to the inside, but Newgarden shuts the door on him there then as Alonso and Dixon start being able to find a way from Pagenaud as Castaneves has now got away a bit from Wickens, who's busy trying to fend off from Will Power. Looks like Canaan's closing up to his own teammate now as he now inherits a top 10 position himself. So both SICs after disappointing qualifying sessions find themselves in the top 10 now then. So now, look at this big gaggle of cars that are forming up behind Joseph Newgarden at the moment. Bourdais trying everything in his power to try and ensure he can find a way through on Joseph Newgarden. Can Bourdais, who's still yet to score points this season, find a way through on Joseph Newgarden? He's going to look to the inside, but Newgarden shuts the door. Can this bring Pagenaud back into the scrap as well? He's unable to do so, but Alonso on the inside of Simon Pagenaud. Can he get the move done into turn 1? No, not quite. Dixon now a little bit closer to Alonso into the first few turns there. Can he try and get him down into turn 3 as now everybody's lining up Newgarden for a pass into turn 3 now, and Bourdais going to have a look at Newgarden. This is way past Pagenaud earlier on in the race. Can Bourdais take the lead from Joseph Newgarden? Down the inside he goes, down the inside, and yes he can. Sebastian Bourdais leads at Detroit. The man who's still yet to score points this season has taken the lead here in Detroit. The defending champion back at the front of the field. Newgarden loses the lead. And look at this now. Bourdais looking like he's starting to stamp his authority and get away from the rest of the pack now. Then it's now Pagenaud's turn to find a way through on Joseph Newgarden now then. Heading down towards the left-hander. He's right in the slipstream already of Joseph Newgarden. He's going to look to the inside. Can Pagenaud pull the move off? No, not quite. Newgarden had to hang it around the outside there to hold on to the place. Alonso trying to see if he can find a way through as well. Looked like Pagenaud trying to find a gap on the inside around that right-hander, but wasn't able to pull the move off there. And as you can see now, Bourdais pulling away quite a lot, and that explains it. Look, looks like Newgarden is on quite a heavy strategy. So whether Newgarden's actually trying to make a one-stop work around here in Detroit, we'll wait and see. But so far he's having to hold off the rest of the pack. He had to go quite defensive there as Pagenaud was putting him under a lot of pressure now then. Around the final turn and onto the pitch straight we go. Can Newgarden fend off, or can Pagenaud find a way through? Tried to have a look through that right-hander, but again, Pagenaud got covered off by Newgarden into there. Fernando thought about having a look, so did Dixon, but they're all going to stay single file. As now, look at this, it's become a massive scrap for second place as now Castaneves, Wickens and Power have now caught up. Chilton's not that far behind either, and nor is Tony Kanaan. Now Pagenaud all over the backside of Joseph Newgarden. Can he find a way through on the Target Andy Graham car into turn 3? Down the inside he goes. Can Pagenaud pull the move off? Down the inside, and yes he can. Pagenaud up into second place, getting the move done. Alonso tried to get alongside but wasn't able to do so that time by, but that's P2 now for Simon Pagenaud. Can he go and try and chase off to Sebastian Bourdais again for the lead of the race? And that could be quite a huge battle for the lead if that were the case. And meantime now then, the whole gaggle of cars is now Chilton and Canaan have now caught up to this scrap for what is now third, thanks to New Garden's heavy fuel load. Now it's Alonso's turn to try and find a way through. He's on the inside of New Garden. Can he pull the move off? No. New Garden shuts the door on him there. Then Dixon trying to follow through there. Wasn't able to make that work out. Into these section of corners we go. Round the left-hander, New Garden trying to get as close to the wall as possible. Round the double left-hander we go now then. Into the hairpin. So now we go down the straight now. They're heading in towards the final two turns on the racetrack now then. As you can see, New Garden again going defensive just like he did on the previous lap with Simon Pagenaud. But look at the whole gaggle of cars that are just behind him at this stage. Alonso now, can he find a way through on New Garden at this stage? He's going to look to the inside. Can he pull the move off? No, not quite. New Garden shuts the doors. Now Dixon goes to the outside of Fernando Alonso. Had to back out of it. Looked like Alonso was about to shut the door. It was because of the fact the track was narrowing up. Castaneda's had a go there at Dixon. Isn't able to pull it off. Puts in prey to Wickens behind him now then. As Pagenaud now pulls away a bit from Joseph New Garden. Fernando Alonso in the slipstream of New Garden. He's going to look to the inside into turn 3 again. Will New Garden yet again get mugged by these guys as they go into the right hand and out in Alonso? Down the inside he goes. No, not this time. New Garden able to fend off and hold on to third and puts Alonso under pressure from Scott Dixon. Dixon unable to find a way through. Castaneda's brought back a little bit closer to this scrap now then, as here is Bourdais now leading the race. Pagenaud trying to close him down in second place as both of them have now broke away from that gap, from the gaggle of cars which are being formed up by Joseph New Garden. Alonso again looking to the inside of Joseph New Garden into this left-hander. Can he pull it off? No again. New Garden hangs it around the outside, holds onto the place. Dixon though looks like he's lost time now behind these guys, but he's slowly starting to close it back up through these sequence of corners now then. As now we approach the double left-hander now they're on the racetrack in towards the hairpin we will now go. And so now coming around the hairpin now then before approaching the final two turns on the racetrack now then. And as you can see again, New Garden going defensive, can feel the pressure from Fernando Alonso, right on board with the Spaniard as he just comes out of the final turn now. They're heading down the pit straight. Can Alonso find a way through this time on Joseph New Garden? Down the inside he goes again. New Garden covers him off. Dixon tries to have a look to the outside, but then realises the track now is up and Castaneda's takes full advantage. Castaneda's up into 5th place, as does Wickens as well. Wickens has gained a place as well. He's up to 6th place. Dixon drops 2 places as a result of the track narrowing up. Now can Alonso find a way through on Joseph New Garden now, and he's going to look to the inside. Can Alonso pull the move off this time? Unlike the previous lap, Alonso alongside New Garden into turn number 3, and yes he can. Alonso up into 3rd place. Dixon trying to find a way back through on Wickens, but Wickens shuts the door on him there then, as now looks like Andretti and Hildebrand have caught up to the scrap. Hildebrand looks to the inside of Andretti, isn't able to pull this off, and you can tell how much this heavy fuel load is wearing down on New Garden as he's holding up a big train of cars now in this race. As now New Garden under threat from Helio Castroneves as he now tries to find a way through on the inside into this left-hander. Can Castroneves pull the move off? No, not quite. New Garden shutting the door there as he holds on to the place, and Dixon trying to get back on Wickens if he can, as Wickens is slowly but surely closing up to this train, as now Alonso gets away as he tries to close up to the top 2. That's in front of him at the moment. Alonso currently inheriting a podium position, trying to make it 2 podiums in a row for E-Power if he can, as now Castaneda's trying to find a way through on Joseph New Garden. Again, New Garden goes defensive into the second to last turn there, but can Castaneda's find a way through down the straight? Let's find out now then as he comes out of the turn. Bourdais now sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 18.347, as now Castaneda's looks to the inside of Joseph New Garden. New Garden again covers off Castaneda's and holds on to the place. Wickens trying to take advantage. He's going to try and round the outside of Helio Castaneda's, isn't able to make it work, and Castaneda's holds on to 5th, and that costs him momentum in trying to get hold of New Garden in front, but it could give Wickens a good opportunity to pass Castaneda's into turn number 3. As Castaneda's goes defensive, can Robert Wickens try and flick it to the inside? He's going to. Wickens down the inside of Helio Castaneda's, but isn't able to make it work out. Castaneda's holds on to the place. It puts Wickens under threat from Dixon yet again. Dixon unable to find a way through. Dixon could come under pressure from his own teammate Will Power in a little bit as they all come around the section of corners now. Then on the racetrack, Alonso trying everything in his power to try and gain onto the guys in front of him at the moment as he makes his way around that left-hander. Meantime, look how close Castaneda's is. He's not close enough to try and attempt to move into that left-hander again as we go around the right-hander on the racetrack now, then into this left-hander as it looks like New Garden there missing the apex. That could cost him in this race. Clearly this heavy fuel load clearly wearing him down at this stage, and he's just waiting for his fuel to come down a bit before he can start pushing and possibly wait for these guys to make their first of 2 stops we're looking at in this race. As now New Garden again goes defensive into the second to last turn now, then Castroneves, can he find a way through down the straight this time by as they come out of the final corner now. They're heading down the straight. Castroneves looking to the inside of Joseph Newgarden. Not quite this time by Wickens though. Unlike before, doesn't take full advantage. Can Castroneves now then, as Newgarden went a tad bit defensive into turn 1 there. Looks like Castroneves could try and find a way through on him. Down into turn 3 next time by. Heading down the straight we go now, then heading in towards turn number 3 now then. Down the inside goes Helio Castroneves. Can he pull the move off on Joseph Newgarden now, then heading in towards the right-hander down the inside? And yes, he can. Castroneves up into 4th place. Newgarden's just going backwards all of a sudden with his heavy fuel load, and that's P4 for Helio Castroneves in the EMR now then. And this is exactly the race EMR needed, because they've so far had quite a terrible season, it must be said, and the team currently last in the team's championship. Not a good start to the defence of their titles, it must be said, especially Bourdais, who's still yet to score some points, and he's out in front leading. Meantime, it's Wickens' go to have a look at Joseph Newgarden for 5th place as he tries to have a look, but Newgarden shuts the door on him there into that left-hander. Dixon though didn't take full advantage of that time by, probably busy trying to fend off his own teammate Will Power from putting a pass on him. As now coming around the section of corners out and through the double left-hander on the racetrack in towards the hairpin we will now go. And Wickens now then trying to get hold of Newgarden if he can. Castroneves is starting to pull a bit of a gap now on Joseph Newgarden as Newgarden goes defensive from Robert Wickens now then through the final 2 turns on the racetrack now then. Around the final turn and onto the pit straight we go. Wickens in the slipstream now then of Joseph Newgarden. Can he pull the move off as Alonso now sets the fastest lap of 1 minute 18.292. So Alonso currently holding on to the bonus point for the fastest lap of the race. Newgarden fends off from Wickens. Dixon tried to take full advantage but wasn't able to do so, as now coming around the section of corners, Wickens later on the brakes there. Then Newgarden, can you try and possibly go for a pass down into turn 3? I'm not even quite sure in fact if Wickens is too far back to challenge, but we'll wait and see. He's in the slipstream of Newgarden. Newgarden tries to go defensive. Wickens trying to dive it down the inside into turn 3. Can Wickens pull the move off as Newgarden tries to stick with him now then, side by side go the pair of them now then, but Newgarden just has the extra drive and holds on to 5th place as now Power's up to 7th. He's got hold of Dixon, so up into 7th place goes Power as now Chilton tries to follow through himself, trying to hang it around the outside, isn't able to do so. Dixon just able to hold off at the moment. As look at these cars now, we've got Rahal involved, Rossi involved, Rosenquist involved, Chavez involved, Montoya and Sato involved as well. Fittipaldi probably feeling like the odd one out at this stage, and well, if he's not careful, in about maybe the next 15 laps or so, he could get lapped by the race leaders as Bourdais continues to have a comfortable lead. Alonso starting to close in on Simon Pagenaud as he set the fastest lap early on the previous lap, and we'll try and see if he continues that form in a little bit. Meantime, back to this huge battle for 5th place in this race now then. Wickens all over the backside of Joseph Newgarden as Newgarden defends into the second to last turn now then on the racetrack. Through the right-hander we go, and then into the final corner. Wickens now then right in the slipstream to pounce on Joseph Newgarden as Alonso sets another fastest lap of 1 minute 18.226 that time by. Wickens tries to have a go. Newgarden covers him off yet again in this race. We're on lap 13 of 70 here at race 1 of Detroit. Power wasn't able to make the move. Power now trying to take full advantage of Wickens, but Wickens fends him off there. Power tried to have a go around the outside there, wasn't able to make the move stick, and it cost Wickens momentum in trying to get Newgarden in front of him at this stage and makes him lose more time to Helio Castroneves in front. Meantime, Power looks to the inside of Wickens. Can he pull the move off into turn 3? No, not quite, as out goes Takuma Sato. Takuma Sato is out of the race, the man who won last time out at Texas. What has happened to Sato? And there he is, he's crashed out at turn 1. Sato has crashed at turn 1, and well, a pure driver error there then for Takuma Sato in the Fantari racing car. And after the high at Texas, as you can see on the replay, he understeers wide into turn 1 and smacks the wall on the outside. Takuma Sato out of the race, and we're down to 18 runners here at Detroit, race 1 here at Detroit. And well, he's going to have to start from 19th place on the grid for race 2 tomorrow. As now we look back at Will Power. Confirmation that Takuma Sato is now out of the race. So Newgarden now has got a big gap in front of Wickens. He's taking full advantage of the fact that Power's been a little bit of a distraction to Wickens, but it looks like Wickens may be starting to claw back that pace a little bit now then. And I'll be interested to see, in fact, what the gap is like between Alonso and Pagenaud, because the last 2 laps now, Alonso has set the fastest lap, and I wonder if he's going to try and continue that trend on this lap as well, as he tries to reel in on Pagenaud for second place in this race, as the top 3 consist of Honda-powered cars, and so that's that really. Honda at this stage, I think, will probably take the lead in the Manufacturers' Championship if it stays like this at this stage. Locking out the top 4, I should say, are the Hondas. And let's see, is Alonso going to set another fastest lap at this stage? And yes, he does, a 1:18.137. What's the gap between him and Pagenaud in front of him at this stage as he tries to reels him in for second place? The gap between them is 2.6 seconds. So that's how that looks at this stage. As meantime, Power tries to find a way through on Robert Wickens in front. Can he get the move done? He's got his teammate Dixon behind him as well, as now he's in the slipstream of Wickens. He's going to look to the inside. Wickens tries to shove him against the wall. Isn't going to quite work out. Power tries to outbrake him into turn number 3. It looks like Wickens is still on the outside, as they're still going to continue side by side into turn 4. Wickens shuts the door and holds on to 6th place for the moment. As meantime, Kanaan and Chilton are down in 10th and 11th. Look at this whole gag out of cars that are forming right behind this. I'm very surprised there's not been a big accident at this stage. Well, Sato was in that train, but he was at the back of the train anyway, so it wasn't really a huge pile up down there. At this stage, one mistake could trigger a pile up within those sets of cars. So especially considering how narrow this track is, because it is a street track, let's not forget, here on the streets of Detroit, as Bourdais starts lap 15 of 70 in this race. And around about 8 laps time, we'll probably see the first round of stops getting on the race. So around about lap 23, we should see the pit lane window open. And so that's pretty much that. As now Fernando, another fastest lap of the race. Let's see the gap between him and Simon Pagenaud this time by as he comes out of turn 2. 2.3 seconds is the gap now then. Meantime, back to this battle for 6th. This is all allowing Newgarden to just pull away from the pack and try and work his one-stop strategy to perfection now then, as Power thought about having to go at Wickens there, wasn't able to pull the move off there, but now heading down towards turn number 3. Can he pull the move off this time by? He's in the slipstream, he's going to look to the inside. Can Power pull the move off? Wickens this time doesn't resist, doesn't try and fend it off, but he didn't need to really, as he's just able to hang it around the outside and again holds on to 6th. Power just stuck behind the back of Wickens' car now then, as Dixon and Andretti try and find a way through. It's pretty much 2 Adrenalines and 2 Eldorados fighting it out for 6th place at the minute. As look at this gang of cars that's going on. Fittipaldi, as mentioned, feeling a little bit left out at the moment as a result of being collected by that crash between Ryan Hunter-Reay and Ed Jones earlier on in the race. As look how close Alonso is getting now to the back of Pagenaud. He's just taking chunks out of Pagenaud's lead at this stage as he looks to try and grab second place from him at this stage of the race now. Then coming out of the final turn and onto the pit straight we will now go. As Bourdais now sets the fastest lap at 1:18.025. So Bourdais now holds on to the bonus point for the fastest lap of the race until it's taken by Alonso, who's the first man to break into the 1:17. So 1:17.969 as the gap now down to 2 seconds. Alonso's taken 3/10 out of Pagenaud's lead that time by, as Power has now dropped back a bit from Wickens, as now Dixon tries to find a way through on his own teammate, isn't able to work it there, and Andretti unable to take full advantage of that. On the left hand, there we go. Power too far back to challenge Wickens, as now Dixon will try and have a go at his own teammate for 7th place now then. Dixon in the slipstream, he's going to look to the inside. Pagenaud tries to shove his own teammate into the wall there as they now go into turn 3. And now, has he pulled the move off? And in fact, where has Power gone? Has Power gone straight on into the wall? And yes, he has. Power has gone straight on into turn number 3. Power trying to hang it around the outside, carried a bit too much speed, and he smacked it into the wall. Will Power is out of the race here at race 1, and we're down to 17 runners. They're all dropping like flies at this stage. What a crazy race it has been here at race 1 of Detroit. Power out, and we're down to 17 runners here at Belle Isle Park. Race 1 of the day. He'll have to start all the way down in 18th place for race 2 tomorrow. And wow, That's that really. That lifts Pietro Fittipaldi up another place. In fact, he's lost his front wing again. Pietro Fittipaldi loses his front wing yet again. And it's a disaster for him. He's now going to get lapped by the rest of the pack now then, as Fittipaldi's disastrous race continues as he comes in without a front wing. And, well, he's just pretty much just gathering points if he can. As Alonso sets another fastest lap of 1 minute 17.939 that time by. What's the gap between him and Pagenaud? 1.8 seconds. Alonso has taken that time around a huge chunk, I think, and he's getting closer and closer to the back of Simon Pagenaud's Silicon Valley racing car. In fact, he's carrying a lot less fuel than the guys in front, probably around about just under 5 litres less than what Simon Pagenaud is carrying in front, so he's clearly using that to his advantage. So he'll probably pit a little bit earlier then than what we anticipated, so probably around about lap number 18, I want to say, so probably next lap around, so, or maybe even the next, probably lap 20 actually, so maybe lap 20 we could see Fernando Alonso come into the pits for his first of 2 scheduled stops as he continues to pile the pressure on Pagenaud. Any chance of trying to leapfrog him is Wickens now, with quite a bit of a gap between himself and Dixon, will now try and harry down Joseph Newgarden in front of him. Meantime, the 2 SICs still scrapping it out with Rahal close behind him as well. Kanaan looks to the inside of Chilton. Chilton not letting him through there. Rahal doesn't take full advantage that time by the championship leaders, busy fending off from Felix Rosenqvist. He's made quite a good recovery after suffering from a qualifying ban, so he's gained 9 places from 20 seconds. So Rosenqvist having a decent race, it must be said, currently outpacing teammate Juan Pablo Montoya. As meantime now, let's see the gap between Alonso and Pagenaud. He's not pitting this lap, so probably lap 20 we'll see him. He sets another fastest lap at 1 minute 17.854. Alonso absolutely flying, and he takes another 4 tenths out of Pagenaud's lead. The gap down to 1.4 seconds between the pair of them at this stage, as now we head down towards turn 3 on the racetrack now. Then Alonso using the curb on the outside there then as he tries to harry down Pagenaud in front of him at this stage. Around the left we go, and then into the next right-hander we will swoop as now we go around these sections of corners. Meantime, the 2 SICs still entertaining each other. Kanaan looked to the inside into turn 3, but Chilton forcing to back out. It's out goes Juan Pablo Montoya. Montoya out of the race. What has happened to Juan? And he's done the same thing as Sato. He's crashed it into turn 1. And that's another casualty down at turn 1 who's crashed along with Hinchcliffe and Sato. Montoya out of the race, and we're down to 16 runners. And it looks like, again, he's understeered off down at turn 1, has smacked it into the wall, and game over for Juan Pablo Montoya. Montoya out, we're down to 16 runners here at Belle Isle Park in Detroit, here in race 1. So Montoya will have to start 17th on the grid tomorrow. At this stage, if it stood like this, it's still a long way to go, but if it stood like this, Tony Kanaan would take pole position for race 2 tomorrow, because the top 10 get reversed to determine the grid for tomorrow. So meantime now, the Newgarden getting caught up back again by Robert Wickens and Scott Dixon and Marco Andretti. So 3 cars starting to close in Newgarden again. Clearly the heavy fuel load wearing Newgarden thin a bit. He's clearly had a little bit of a break as a result of the battles that were going on behind him. But now Wickens is caught up again. Now he's got a bit of a gap between himself and Dixon after power crashed out down at turn number 3 as Bourdais sets the fastest lap now, 1 minute 17.765. Can Alonso respond to that this lap? No, he can't. We got a yellow, and well, we still got a yellow down at turn 1, and I think that was because they were still trying to clear Montoya, not because there was another crash. I thought that initially, but it's because they were still attempting to clear Montoya's cars. Fernando Alonso is pitting at the end of this lap then, as he's cut the gap by another 2 tenths between himself and Simon Pagenaud. Alonso, I think, did respond with another fastest lap there then, as he continues to close in on Simon Pagenaud. As Rahal's in, so I think the scheduled stops are now underway, and yes they are. Kanaan, Rosenqvist and Rahal in for scheduled stops, so 3 cars in at this time. Tony Kanaan into the pits for SIC as the pit stop stages get underway. Alonso coming in this time around as well, as Kanaan finishes his stop. He's having to wait for Rahal to go through, and Rahal has got the jump, as has Felix Rosenqvist. So Kanaan loses 2 places in the pits because of the game's physics of not allowing side-by-side action in the pits. And, wow, Kanaan loses 2 places in the pits, and Rahal and Rosenqvist gain a place as a result. They both, all 3 of them rejoin 14th, 13th, 14th and 15th respectively. We'll be seeing Alonso coming to the pits as he hopes to try and leapfrog Pagenaud this time by. He pulls to the right and into the pits comes third place man Fernando Alonso in the e-Power car. He needs a good stop if he wants to try and leapfrog Pagenaud once the Frenchman pits for his scheduled stop, which is probably in around about another 4 to 5 laps time. So Pagenaud staying out for a little bit longer, hoping he could try and stretch the advantage a little bit as the e-Power mechanics get to work on Fernando Alonso's car. Adrenaline getting ready for one of their cars. I presume it's Robert Wickens who's coming into the pit, so that will not be good for Alonso if Wickens holds him up, and Alonso able to get out just before Wickens gets in. Chilton also into the pits for SIC as well, so 2 cars in at this time, and it's Marco Andretti in fact, not Robert Wickens, I do apologise. It's Andretti who comes into the pits. Chavez is also coming from Macamo as Alonso rejoins in 9th position behind Alexander Rossi, so that's where Alonso comes out. As Chilton is in, as Andretti comes out, still in front of Chilton at this stage as he finishes off his pit stop. Where's he going to come out? And he comes out in 10th position. Chilton's going to rejoin in 11th, just in front of Rahal, or is he? Yeah, Chilton just in front, but can Rahal possibly get him down into turn 3 now? Then Rahal in the slipstream of Max Chilton. He's going to look to the inside. This is where Chilton crashed last season, but he's able to fend off Rahal this time by, and he's able to hold on to 11th place there as Rosenquist is in 13th place at the moment. Chavez rejoined 15th, so second to last effectively, because we've had 6 retirements in this race now then, as Bourdais will probably be pitting before Pagenaud does. He's got 2 litres less than what Pagenaud has, so Pagenaud will inherit the lead temporarily as Bourdais sets another fastest lap of the race, so he now holds on to the bonus point for the fastest lap of the race now. Then as Dixon comes in, as does Robert Wickens. I think that has just come in as well, and yes it is, and unseen by the cameras, it looks like Dixon has actually got ahead of Robert Wickens while we're all keeping an eye on the pit stops. Dixon has actually got ahead of Wickens on the racetrack, so Dixon gains a place as a result. As what's going on with Newgarden at the moment? Newgarden is still out there at the moment. I don't know if those two actually passed him a little bit earlier, but I think that's pretty irrelevant at this stage because he's on a 1 stop as Dixon still able to get in front of Wickens. Wickens had to wait there for Dixon to go through before causing a crash. And we have seen pit lane incidents before in other categories, including IFMC GP2 when Mindrines Racing released one of their drivers into a path of another car and they ended up getting a fine for it as a result. As Wickens comes out on the track now then and rejoins in 10th, but Chilton trying to have a go at him, as is Rahal. Rahal trying to outbrake Chilton around the outside into turn 3. Can he pull the move off? No, not quite. Neither of them gaining places as a result. Rosenquist trying to close into that scrap. Chavez trying to get on the back of Canaan if he can. As are we expecting some more cars coming in a little bit, and just trying to check the fuel loads, and I think we're just having a little bit of a breather from pit stops at this stage, so no pit stops to come at this stage. Bourdais probably going to be pitting on the next lap as he continues to pull an advantage in front of Simon Pagenaud as he continues to set another fastest lap there. You just saw his name briefly pop up on the top of your screen there. Bourdais absolutely flying, and this is determination from Bourdais. As I've mentioned a few times in this race, Bourdais is yet to score points this season. He's retired from all of the races so far, and he's hoping that this race will kick off his defence of his championship. He's got a long mountain to climb if he wants to have a shot at winning his 2nd title, but it's not impossible, and nor is it impossible for EMR to try and win their 2nd team's crown, but they've also got a mountain to climb as they're currently last in the team's championship. This will obviously lift them up if it stays like this, with both EMRs provisionally in a top 4 position. Of course they're not at the moment. They're currently Cash and Evans is in the top 3. That's because of course Alonso pitted a little bit earlier on. As in fact Bourdais is coming into the pits. I do apologise, I wasn't able to see the bottom right there, but Bourdais, the race leader, is coming into the pits. Pagenaud will take the lead temporarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if he either pits on the next lap or the lap after. As now, let's see how quick the stop is going to be then for race leader Sebastian Bourdais, as he's just been flying out in front of the moment, setting fastest lap after Alonso came into the pits. It's a 10.5 second stop for Sebastian Bourdais. Where's he going to come out then after this pit stop? And we should expect him possibly to pit around about lap 43 for his 2nd and final stop of the race. As now he'll soon flick off the pit limiter. Where is Bourdais going to come out? He comes out in 3rd position, comfortably in front of one stopping Joseph Newgarden at the moment. So he's still got a big gap in front of Alonso. Like that mattered anyway, because Alonso was too far behind him anyway. But Bourdais rejoins in a comfortable 3rd position after his pit stop, behind teammate Helio Castroneves, who I believe could be stopping at the end of this lap. He is, so Castroneves is pitting this lap as well. Pagano, I don't think he is. No, his teammate is, though. J.I. Hildebrand is coming into the pits this time by himself. Pagano, I wouldn't be surprised if he pits at the end of next lap. So let's see now then as he comes up towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack now. Then Pagano coming around the final 2 turns, and he stays out on the track, of course. Cashin Evers is coming in this time by for his scheduled stop. Let's see where Pagano is going to... Is he going to be pitting at the end of the lap now then? As I try and see the bottom right, and I can't quite see at the moment. And Cashin, yes, Pagano is coming in at the end of this lap. Into the pit comes Helio Cashin for East Midlands Racing, and he'll need a good stop if he wants to get close to the back of Fernando Alonso. After this pit stop, Cashin into his box as J.I. Hildebrand is coming in this time by. There he is, he's coming into his box as the championship leader is into the pits himself. As Cashin finishes his stop, it's a 10.5 second stop for Helio. So Alonso's actually just breezed through there, so Cashin loses a little bit more time to Fernando Alonso. But where is he going to emerge after this stop? As J.I. Hildebrand finishes off his pit stop as Cashin flicks off the pit limiter, and he's going to rejoin in 6th position. So 6th place behind, he comes out just in front of Pietro Fittipaldi, who is a lap down, of course, and comfortably in front of Andretti, who in fact actually got the jump on Dixon in the pit. So Andretti has gained a place after the pit stop. Hildebrand rejoins in 9th in front of Wickens. So another place Wickens has lost in the pits as Hildebrand, the championship leader, has got up into 9th place. Excuse me, that was a bit of a belch there. That was an unintentional one. As Chilton's under threat from Rosenquist. Chilton has dropped back a bit from Graham Rahal, and he's under threat a bit from Felix Rosenquist at this stage. As into the pits comes temporary race leader Simon Pagano. So let's see how quick his stop is going to be. The question is, where is Fernando Alonso on the racetrack now then? Remember, he's fighting with Alonso, and that's a very quick stop for Simon Pagano. Only a 9.3 second stop for the Frenchman. Through will go Sebastian Bourdais to reclaim the lead. Where is Alonso? I think Pagano is going to rejoin still comfortably ahead of him. Clearly, he's pitting a lot lighter than what Alonso did, and he rejoins in 2nd place in front of the one stopping Joseph Newgarden, who isn't yet to pit until the next few laps, of course. Newgarden now right behind Simon Pagano, as also apparent. Well, I don't know if he is on a one stop because his fuel's coming quite lightly, but Rossi has been out for quite a while, and Alonso, despite the fastest lap he's pulled out, has lost a lot of time in the pit and isn't able to gain a lot from Pagano. So Pagano is putting some scorching laps to be able to have to stay in front of Alonso, despite fueling a little bit less there than Fernando Alonso. So whether that works out for Pagano come the end of the race, we'll wait and see on that. But Alonso's now got to get his head down if he wants to get back at Pagano. And but Pagano is a long way in front, and at the moment looks like Pagano could come under threat from the one stopping Newgarden. So this is probably around about the time when Newgarden's strategy could come into an effect, as he's now pretty much within the same sort of window as what these guys are. As now around the final 2 turns on the racetrack now then goes Joseph Newgarden, as he now tries to get hold of Simon Pagano for 2nd place in this race. It's now his turn to do the chasing rather than Fernando Alonso. As now Newgarden tries to make this one-stop strategy work out for him as he comes through the first 2 turns on the racetrack now. Then the gap between him and Pagano, as he looked like he had a little bit of oversteer there coming around the corner, and it is 0.8 seconds between them at this stage. Newgarden must have made a tiny mistake there going into turn 2, as he's now lost quite a lot of time to Simon Pagano as a result. So quite a costly mistake there from Newgarden. Shows how much he's pushing hard to try and get all of these guys. And it's now allowed Rossi to close up, but I think Rossi is pitting at the end of this lap anyway. Yes, he is. Rossi is pitting at the end of this lap, so Alonso should be able to gain a place. But still, he'll need to still get his foot down if he wants to get out of Newgarden and Pagano in this race now then, as we look at Alexander Rossi, who'll be coming into the pits this time by currently in a temporary 4th place at the moment, as he makes his way around the left-hander now and getting as close to the wall as possible. Around the double left-hander he will go on the racetrack into the hairpin. So Rossi now then trying to get as close to the wall as possible in towards the final two turns on the racetrack we will go. And now around the final turn and onto the pit straight goes Alexander Rossi, as he now comes into the pits from a temporary 4th place. Alonso should be able to get through As a result, into the pit lane comes Alexander Rossi from 4th place temporarily as the mechanics are getting set to get to work on his car now then. A change of tyres needed as he puts on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. And let's see where Rossi is going to come out then after this stop. It's a 9.2 second stop for Rossi, so putting in quite a little bit of fuel. Only 17.9 litres have gone into the car of Alexander Rossi, but where is he going to come out now then? As he trundles down pit lane, he flicks off the pit limiter and he's going to rejoin in 9th place behind the battling Dixon and JR Hildebrand and in front of Robert Wickens. So another place Wickens has lost is now Hildebrand down the inside of Scott Dixon. Can he try and grab 7th from the Kiwi now then into turn 3? No, not quite. Dixon able to hang it around the outside and hold on to the place at this stage. As now Alonso will try and get his foot down and try and chase after Joseph Newgarden for that final podium place. As here is Sebastian Bourdais, still leading the race, quite a comfortable gap in front of Simon Pagenaud at the minute. As Newgarden on the one stop tries to chase these guys down as Bourdais is about to start lap 28 of 70 here at Detroit. And so specifically, we now have 43 laps remaining here at race 1 of Belle Isle Park. And now coming through turn 2 there goes Sebastian Bourdais, as he's now got a 3.2 second cushion in front of Simon Pagenaud at this stage, and Newgarden has spun at turn 1. Newgarden has made a mistake down at turn 1. What has happened? A chance for his one stop to pay off has gone down the toilet, and no, that is a problem for Joseph Newgarden. What a shame. We'll never know if he was able to make that one stop strategy work. A transmission problem has spun his car to a halt, and Joseph Newgarden is out of the race. That is a very brave marshal, I should say. But Joseph Newgarden out of the race, and we're down to 15 runners. In a way for Alonso, that was pretty easy for him. He now gets back onto the podium slot. Casanova is back up to 4th, 5th for Andretti, and getting into the top 10 will be Graham Rahal as he tries to close in on Robert Wickens in front of him for what will be 9th place once Wickens passes this section, which he does now. As meantime now then, as Hildebrand is now under threat from Alexander Rossi. Rossi causing him some grief. The championship leader under threat as Rossi goes onto the inside, but Hildebrand thinks better of it. Probably use Dixon's slipstream to try and keep him in front of Rossi, as it's a 3-car scrap for 6th place as Andretti's got a bit of a gap in front of these guys at this stage. As we now look at Simon Pagenaud now then, as he just goes around the hairpin, tries to gain onto Sebastian Bourdais if he can. In fact, Bourdais isn't that far in front of him. Looks like Pagenaud's got some good pace on this stint, it must be said. Maybe Pagenaud's got a little bit more pace in the tank than what Sebastian Bourdais has in front. Maybe. Could this be Cota 2.0 between these guys, as these two were pretty much scrapping it out for the lead in that race last season. As now we look at the battle as we see what the gap is like between Bourdais and Pagenaud. It was 3.2 last time by. It's down to 3 seconds. So Pagenaud has taken 2 tenths out of Bourdais' lead. So Pagenaud lapping quicker than Bourdais on this stint as he tries to inherit the lead from his fellow compatriot at this stage of the race. As he just goes out of turn 1 on the racetrack and into turn 2. He will soon go. As meantime now, as you can see, Hildebrand still under threat from Alexander Rossi, who's in the slipstream. Can he try and get Hildebrand into turn 1? Has to back out of it as the track narrows up into turn 1 there. Then Hildebrand now has the momentum to try and get hold of Dixon as Rossi has fell back just a little bit. As now can Hildebrand try and get Dixon into turn 3? And it does look like, in fact, Hildebrand's just a little bit too far back. So Dixon will hold on to the place despite the need to defend. He didn't really need to, as Hildebrand was too far back to challenge that time by. As you look at Rossi, who's trying to close back into that scrap now, then that 3-car scrap for 6th place now then, as we go around these section of corners. As now coming off the turn, heading down towards the quick left-hander. We will soon go on the racetrack as now Hildebrand right in the slipstream of Dixon. Can he try the impossible around this left-hander? I think we've seen moves like this before last season as well, but we're unable to see it so far, and that continues as Hildebrand still struggling to find a way through on Scott Dixon at this stage as he just makes his way around through those section of corners now then on the racetrack. Round the double left-hander we will go, and now into the hairpin now then we go on the racetrack. Hildebrand still trying to fend off from Alexander Rossi if he can, as they will soon approach the final 2 turns on the racetrack. Hildebrand still stuck behind Dixon's slipstream at the moment, and let's see if Hildebrand can try and get hold of Dixon for 6th place now then, as Wickens is slowly closing onto this scrap as well behind. heading down the straight. Hildebrand in the slipstream. He's going to look to the inside. Can he get Dixon into turn 1? He thought about it, but Dixon just has the legs and breaks that a little bit later than Hildebrand coming out of turn 1 there. Then can Rossi try and get hold of, well, in fact, get hold of Hinchcliffe himself? It doesn't look like it at this stage of the race, as Fittipaldi down in 15th place. The two Meccano cars bringing up the rear of the field, it must be said, as we'll go back to these two at the moment, who are continuing, as Pagano continues to try and close the gap down to Bourdais in front, as now we head in towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack. Now then, Pagano now then trying to get hold of Bourdais in front, as they will go down the pit straight now. Then let's see the gap between these two at this stage, as Pagano now then crosses the line, and the gap between Pagano and Bourdais is now, as they come around the first 2 turns on the racetrack, the gap between them is 3 seconds, so they're both lapping around about the same pace. So Bourdais possibly starting to respond to Pagano's pace at this stage of the race on this stint. So now around the right-hander we goes, as we're currently on lap 31 of 70 here, so 40 laps to go here at race 1 of Detroit, and so 40 laps remaining. As meantime now then, as Rossi's lost a bit of time to these two, Hildebrand again back on the prow of Scott Dixon. He's going to try and look to the inside into turn 1 again, but again Dixon shuts the door. Rossi closes up a little bit more to this scrap now then, as they go down the straight towards turn number 3 on the racetrack. Now then, Rahal slowly but surely starting to close in on Wickens for 9th place. So this stint clearly working out for Graham Rahal, the only Martini in the race, as a result of his teammate crashing out from a comfortable lead very early on in the race. So obviously a good loss of points there for Martini Inertia, and that could have been a lot for them in the team's championship, as they're currently right up there at this stage, as Rahal tries to get to work to close on to Robert Wickens in front, the very popular Canadian. As now through the left-hander we go. Hildebrand losing a bit of time, it seems, now to Dixon. Rossi closing in a bit more to Hildebrand than what Hildebrand is on Dixon in front. I think it is, looking at it from the camera angles. As now Rossi round at the double left-hander, we will go on the racetrack into the hairpin, trying to get hold of the cars in front of the moment, as Rossi tries to line up Hildebrand for a pass. Wickens not that far behind these guys either, looking to try and pounce as well if he can. Round the final 2 turns then we go, as out goes Gabby Chavez in the Meccano car. Gabby Chavez is out of the race. What has happened to the Colombian? And there he is. He's got a transmission problem. So that's the second transmission problem we've seen in this race. Chavez pulls off the track down at turn number 6 or 7, I want to say. And Gabby Chavez is out of the race, and we're down to 14 runners here at Detroit. And so that's that really as far as they are concerned. Rossi not close enough to get Hildebrand down into turn 1 this time by. So confirmation that Chavez is out of the race at the moment. Heading into turns 1 and 2 we will now go, as Rossi tries to put some pressure on Hildebrand in front of him at the moment, as Wickens is not that far behind him either, nor is Graham Rahal as well, as they now head down towards the right-hander on the racetrack. Turn 3 we go. Dixon now with quite a bit of a gap now in front of these guys. Look like these guys are just calming down a little bit at this stage. Meantime, the two SICs scrapping it out for 12th, as Kanaan looks to the inside of his own teammate down to turn 3. Can Kanaan pull the move off on Chilton? No, not quite. Chilton shuts the door and holds on to 12th place at the present stage. Bourdais continuing to lead the race. We'll have a look and see what the gap is like between the top 2 anyway, as Bourdais starts lap 33 of 70 here at Detroit. So we now have specifically 38 laps remaining here at race 1 of Belle Isle Park, and through turn 2 we go, and it's down to 2.9 seconds. So from the last time we checked, Pagano actually took only 1/10 out of Bourdais' lead at the moment, so maybe starting to pick up the pace a little bit again, but we'll wait and see on that, as now through those section of corners there then goes Simon Pagano, as he tries to close in on his fellow compatriot for the lead of the race, as now as everybody just appears to have calmed down a bit, apart from the two SIC cars who continue to scrap it out for 12th, as Kanaan again right on the backside of Max Chilton now then on the racetrack. He's going to have a go through this right-hander. Chilton though shutting the door, and if I were Azul Zafri, I'd be worried at this point, because there's a chance they could both take each other out, and that would not please team boss Azul Zafri at all as they now come out of turn 2 on the racetrack, heading down the straight towards turn number 3. Can Chilton pull the move up? Sorry, can Canaan pull the move off on Chilton? Down to turn 3 this time. By down the inside he goes. Has he pulled the move off? And yes, he can. Canaan up into 12th place, gets the move done this time by, and that's P12 for the Brazilian veteran as he gets in front of teammate Max Chilton now then, as Chilton maybe starting to fall back a bit, still trying to cling on to him at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if Canaan starts to stretch his advantage out just a little bit now then, as now heading down towards that left-hander now then, but Chilton's still sticking with him, so Chilton hasn't really given up on him at this stage of the race. Through the right-hander we go into the next left-hander on the racetrack as we now approach these section of corners through the double left-hander, and it now looks like the Canaan's starting to stretch his advantage a little bit at the front of the field. And but Chilton not giving up, but as mentioned a little bit earlier, I think Canaan will start to stretch it a bit, which I think he has done now. So he has officially got 12th, no pressure from Chilton, as he'll now try and chase down Felix Rosenquist for P number 11 in the Red Rose Racing car. As meantime, these lot have not really made that much action at this stage. But as I say that, of course, Dixon is slowly closing in onto the back of Marco Andretti. So it looks like Dixon might want to try and grab 5th at this stage. JR Hildebrand not that far behind from this scrap either. The championship leader trying to get involved if he can. As now we head down towards the quick left-hander on the racetrack now then. And so through we go then into these section of corners around the long swooping right-hander we go. As now Dixon trying to get up close to the wall as best as possible now then, heading into the double left-handers now then. And so now heading down towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack now then. And now into the final 2 corners we go on the racetrack, heading down the straight towards turn 1. And so that's not really as far as they are concerned. What's the gap between these two at this stage? As we're now on lap 35 of the race, we're now at the halfway point of race 1 here at Detroit. Through turn 2, we're 3 minutes away from the 2 o'clock mark for anybody wondering. And the gap is 0.9 seconds, so it's under a second between the pair of them at this stage. So the turn number 3 we go now then, as Dixon still tries to get hold of Andretti in front, trying to close the gap down a little bit. And he's a little bit closer on that lap than he was previously, so Dixon absolutely flying at the moment, pushing hard to try and get Andretti in front of him. They're also coming up to some traffic in the form of Pietro Fittipaldi, who's had a disastrous race, had to pit twice for a new front wing. And wow, that was that really. Through the long sweeping right-hander we go, and into the left as Dixon now then gets up close to the wall as possible, round the double left-hander and into the hairpin. As now as Dixon will try and get hold of Andretti in front if he can around these round the last 2 turns on the racetrack. And Dixon now then, as I thought that was somebody into the pits, but clearly my eyes were playing tricks on me. But let's see the gap between Andretti and Dixon this time by round turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack. As just coming off the turn, the gap now being 0.8 seconds, so only a tenth that time around Dixon took out of Andretti, but he's still gaining on him at this stage. Probably Andretti's strongest sector compared to Dixon is probably the last sector at the moment. Clearly the other sectors, Dixon's just got a little bit more pace to offer than what Marco Andretti has at the moment. Through the left-hander there then goes Scott Dixon as he tries to get out of Andretti in front. So now he just comes off the turn, heading down towards the quick left-hander he will soon go. And so now we will flick it round the flat-out left-hander. And now around the long swooping right-hander we go on the racetrack, heading into the next left-hander. As now through the double left, and we'll check in a little bit to see what the gap is like between these two in a little bit. Andretti getting close to that piece of traffic that's in front of him at this stage. So, and I think in around about a few laps' time, we should be expecting the second round of stops to get underway. So these laps have gone pretty quickly, it must be said, in this race. As Andretti now then still trying his best to keep the gap decent between himself and Scott Dixon at the moment as they come down the pit straight now then, and through the section of corners we will now go. And let's see now then what the gap is like between the Adrenaline and the Eldorado. It's back up to 0.9 seconds, so Andretti has responded and he's starting to lap a little bit quicker now than Scott Dixon at the moment, probably using Fittipaldi's slipstream in front to his advantage possibly, who knows. But there we are really, as now through the swooping set of corners we go, as now we go around the right-hander now then, as we now head down towards the flat-out left-hander we go. And they'll soon flick it around this left-hander in a little bit, which they do, around the left, and then around the long swooping right-hander we will go. And now into the section of corners, getting as close to the wall as possible on the outside now then, around the double left-hander, as now into the hairpin there then goes Marco Andretti. As Dixon's still trying to get up to him as best as possible, but so far nothing's really working for him. At this stage, Wickens has lost his front wing. Wickens has lost his front wing, and we've been unable to catch it, but Robert Wickens is wingless. That lifts Rahal up into 9th place, and whatever's happened, Wickens is going to have to make a trip to the pits for a new front wing. That's some big points that are going to go down the toilet for Adrenaline Motorsport, as Wickens will have to come back in, as mentioned, for a new front wing. Through will go Felix Rosenqvist into the top 10 in the Red Rose Racing car. And wow, Wickens' race could be a disaster, but this just possibly give him a good opportunity to change his strategy and try and fuel up to the end of the race. Let's see what happens as he pits. As the SIC car, very lucky there that Wickens didn't turn into him there. That was of course Tony Kanaan that got past him there, as Chilton has been continuing to lose time to his own teammate for the last few laps now, as Wickens is into the pits. He'll have a change of front wing of course. He should rejoin in 13th because Fittipaldi is a lap down. And let's see if that is fueled to the end of the race, and it is fueled, so Wickens is fueling up to the end of the race, so a change of strategy there then for Robert Wickens. He's hoping this works out despite the loss of the front wing, as quite a long stop to repair it, of course, understandable. And we wait and see when the lollipop land gets going. There you go, a 23.7 second stop because of the change of front wing, but now Wickens finds himself a lap down, and Fittipaldi, well, he's a bit a long way back, but if he can get his foot down, he can try and get some competition involved, thanks to Wickens being a lap down now. But Wickens is fueled to the end of the race, so he won't be a lap down again after everybody else makes their last stops of the race now then. And it looks like JR Hildebrand is going to be pitting at the end of this lap now then, so clearly Wickens' loss of front wing coming at the right time as Hildebrand pits for his second and final stop of the afternoon. As the Silicon Valley Racing car get to work on his car. He's now fueled to the end of the race. A quick wipe of the visor for the championship leader, and let's see where Hildebrand is going to rejoin then after his second pit stop of the afternoon now then, and it is a 13.1 second stop for the number 23 of JR Hildebrand. As out goes Scott Dixon. Dixon is out of the race. What's happened to the Eldorado? And he's got an engine failure. There it is. An engine failure has taken care of the Eldorado of Scott Dixon. And that is a disaster for Dixon. He was looking good for some strong points today, and he smacks it in the wall in disgust. Scott Dixon out of the race, and we're down to 13 runners here at Detroit. And, well, that's that really. And that will leave Hildebrand and who else was behind him at the time? I think it was Rossi up a few places once they make their second and final stops of the afternoon, as the yellow flags start there attempting to clear Scott Dixon's wrecked Eldorado car. And now we look at Bourdais. He's still leading at the moment and not yet scheduled for a pit stop, as that's a little bit clumsy there from the stewards. They're trying to hoist Dixon over to the other side of the catch fencing, so not very wise, as Alonso tries to lap Wickens at the moment, probably getting a little bit frustrated at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if Wickens gets the old Fernando Alonso hand gesture once he gets by. And that's that really. So Alonso heads down the hill towards turn number 3, and Wickens still not allowing Alonso to go until around about now, I should say. Wickens gives him the space. Alonso, I wouldn't be surprised if he gives him the hand gesture, because I think he's held him up for quite a while now. And Alonso gets through on him, and now tries to chase down that long gap he's got to try and chase down Simon Pagenaud for second place. As luckily for Alonso, Helio Castroneves wasn't able to take full advantage. Into the pits comes Tony Kanaan from 9th place, and I think, has he been lapped? I think, no, it doesn't look like he's been lapped, but Kanaan in for his scheduled stop, and let's see where this pit stop is going to bring out Kanaan as he puts on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. He's now fueled to the end of the race, as now let's see what the SIC mechanics do. It's a 12.8 second stop for the Brazilian veteran. Let's see where Kanaan comes out. We have got, as I think now, Kanaan is actually a lap down. Yes, he is. We have 30 laps remaining here at race 1 of Detroit. Kanaan rejoins in 11th. He won't be a lap down once the guys in front of him make their scheduled stops, but for the moment he is a lap down, as Pagenaud has got a 17.1 second cushion in front of Alonso, so it shows how much time Alonso has lost in this stint, and especially as well with Wickens holding him up for quite a while. Into the pits comes Pietro Fittipaldi for a 3rd time today, as also coming in is, who is that? That is one of the Andrelin cars that has come into the pits, as Graham Rahal is in for Martini, and it's Marco Andretti who's into the pits. So let's see how quick the stop is going to be for these guys as they put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. As Fittipaldi finishes his stop, Andretti having to wait for Fittipaldi to go. Luckily for him, that didn't cost him a place to Graham Rahal there, as they now come trundling down pit lane. Andretti is going to rejoin in 8th position, and where's Rahal going to come out? There's Hildebrand. Has he got the jump on Hildebrand as the pair of them go side by side out the pit lane? Hildebrand still in front of Rahal and still in 9th place, but Rahal could try and get him down the hill into this right-hander, but he's not close enough. Into the pits comes 2nd place man Simon Pagenaud, as he hopes to try and close in onto Bourdais after this pit stop. He puts on a fresh set of tyres and fuel now. Then where is Pagenaud going to emerge after his 2nd pit stop of the afternoon now then? And it is a 12.3 second stop for the Frenchman. Let's see where he comes out then after this stop. And so he'll soon flick off the pit limiter, which he does. And Pagenaud is going to rejoin in 4th place in front of Rossi, who has actually just come into the pit. So Rossi now in for a scheduled stop, as he was currently battling, I think, also with J.R. Hildebrand, as is Graham Rahal. So let's see if Rossi can try and get the jump on J.R. Hildebrand, if he can, as he puts on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. And it is a 12.5 second stop for Alexander Rossi, and let's see where he emerges. Andretti comes down the straight. Andretti will go through up into 7th place again. But where is Hildebrand? Hildebrand's only just coming down the straight. It's going to be close, but I think Rossi's going to be emerging front, which he does. So up into 8th place goes Alexander Rossi. He gets in front of J.R. Hildebrand, and that's a position gained for the American, as now Rahal wants a piece of the championship leader himself now then, as they come down the straight. As Bourdais, the race leader, is into the pits. We'll get to him in a bit as Rahal tries to have a look at Hildebrand, but Hildebrand covers him off and holds on to 9th place at this stage. Bourdais in for his scheduled stop, gives Alonso the lead temporarily in this race. But where is Bourdais going to emerge as Pagenaud just comes out of the final corner, and this might be actually pretty close between the pair of them, but I think Bourdais is just going to emerge still in front. Yes, he does. He rejoins in 2nd in front of teammate Helio Castroneves. So he's got his teammate between himself and Simon Pagenaud. Castroneves, of course, still yet to make a stop, but Castroneves doesn't want his race being compromised as he tries to find a way through on Sebastian Bourdais, but Bourdais covers him off and holds on to the place. He doesn't want Castroneves to compromise Bourdais' race and end up with Pagenaud being behind his fellow compatriot. Felix Rosenqvist in the Red Rose Racing car pits for his scheduled stop. Let's see where he's going to emerge after this stop now then, as he puts on a fresh set of tyres and fuel on the car. And let's see where the Red Rose Racing car is going to emerge. And it is a 12.1 second stop for the number 19 of Felix Rosenqvist. Where is he going to emerge? And he's going to emerge still in 10th position comfortably in front of Tony Kanaan. So still inheriting a top 10 position is Felix Rosenqvist in the Red Rose Racing cars. Rahal again looks at the inside of J.R. Hildebrand. Can he pull the move off? And this time he can. Up into 8th place goes Graham Rahal in the Martini. He inherits the position from championship leader J.R. Hildebrand. I don't know what is going to happen in the Drivers' Championship if it stays like this. You'll have to find out at the end of the day what happens in the Drivers' Championship after race 1 here in Detroit to find out, of course. But he's now down to 9th as a result of Rahal passing him for 8th place. Next target for Rahal, it's a bit of a task. His next target is 7th place man Alexander Rossi in the Fantari racing car. So we'll have to wait and see if Rahal can get his foot down and try and chase after him. At the present moment, here is Cachaneres. I don't know if he's scheduled to make a stop this time by. We'll have a look at his dashboard, and yes, he is. You can just see the green lights. Cachaneres is pitting at the end of this lap now. Then, so he should be out in the normal place in a bit. What about Alonso? He's still in the lead temporarily, and we're trying to have a look at his cockpit. And I don't think he needs to make another stop for another lap, so I think Alonso is going to stay out for another lap as Max Chilton in the SIC comes into the pits for his scheduled stop of the race now then. As now up towards the final 2 turns, we will go on the racetrack through the left, through the right side, and then into the final corner we go. Heading down the pit straight now then, as Alonso, let's see on his dashboard if he's got to pit this time by, and we're trying to have a look. We can't quite see at the present moment as he just goes around turn 2. Cachaneres, as mentioned, he's pitting at the end of this lap, and yes, he is. Alonso is pitting at the end of this lap. As into the pits comes Helio Cachaneres for East Midlands Racing. Let's see how quick the stop will be then for the Brazilian as he puts on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. Where is Cachaneres going to emerge? It is an 11.6 second stop for the Brazilian as he now comes trundling down pit lane, and he'll soon flick off the pit limiter. Where is Cachaneres going to rejoin now then? He is going to rejoin in a comfortable 4th position, a long way in front of Marco Andretti. So still in 4th is Helio Cachaneres in the East Midlands racing car. So meantime, Bourdais now being held up by Robert Wickens, the back marker, and this could allow Simon Pagenaud to get on him just a little bit. So it could bring Pagenaud a tad bit closer to the back of Sebastian Bourdais now then. As Bourdais now then getting really held up by Robert Wickens, and this could allow Pagenaud to get up close to the back of him. There he is, Pagenaud not that far now behind Sebastian Bourdais. This is the real battle for the lead of the race as Alonso comes into the pits for his scheduled stop. Now Bourdais has got a car between himself and Pagenaud, but will that be enough? As Pagenaud got through, Pagenaud has got through, but it looks like he's been held up as well, so Bourdais still got a bit of a gap in front of his fellow compatriot. Alonso in for his second and final stop of the afternoon. Let's see how quick the stop will be then for the 3-time IFMC champion, as he looks to try and make it a second podium in a row for E-Power and his first ever podium in IFMC IndyCar. As now Alonso trundles down pit lane, and he's going to, I think, still rejoin in 3rd. Yes, he will. He's still got a big gap in front of Helio Cachaneres, so Alonso still rejoins comfortably in 3rd position, as he's still got a bit of a task to try and get onto these two. Well, I say that, he seemed to have gained a lot in the pits, it must be said. That piece of traffic from Robert Wickens has definitely helped out Alonso a little bit, because he's gained quite a chunk from that pit stop. He's still quite a long way behind the top 2, but he has gained quite a lot, so maybe he could use this as momentum to try and gain onto them in these remaining, what? Let's have a look. These remaining 25 laps of the race. So that's that really, as Alonso now heads down towards the flat out left-hander on the track, as now he comes around those section of corners. He'll soon swoop around the long right-hander now then. Into the left-hander he goes. Meantime we look at Sebastian Bourdais, who's just coming around the final 2 corners on the racetrack, as he continues to lead the way at the moment, heading down the straight, as he's now starting to pull away again. I think I might be wrong on that, but we'll see the gap anyway, as Bourdais starts lap 47 of 70, so 24 laps remaining for the Frenchman. Into turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack we will go, and the gap being 2.1 seconds. So that's how that looks at the moment. What's Alonso's gap to Pagenaud on this lap as he goes around turns 1 and 2, and see how much he's got to gain as he comes out of the second corner now then on the racetrack. And the gap being, let's have a look, it's starting to come up on the screen, and it is 10.6 seconds between the pair of them. So that's a lot of time Alonso has gained after that stop. So 10.6 seconds, the gap between himself and second place man Simon Pagenaud. at the present moment, as Rahal tries to gain onto Rossi, but not really closing on him as much as he would have liked. As Kanaan and Chilton look like they're going to resume their battle for 10th place. It's like Chilton got back ahead of Kanaan after the pit stops, so now Kanaan clearly wants that position back as the two SICs look to scrap it out for what will be 10th place in this race now then. Heading down the straight before approaching turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack. As now just coming around that left-hander we go, as Kanaan gets as close to the wall as possible. As well, I do apologise there for the little drop of frames. As now into turns number 3 we go. And so now coming off the turn, as Kanaan is 1 second exactly behind Chilton after that lap. And they're not that far from being lapped either, these guys are. 2.2 now the gap between Bourdais and Pagenaud, so Bourdais has pulled the gap a little bit by a tenth between himself and his fellow compatriot as he looks to try and get his first points on the board, which would be a victory, of course, which is quite rare nowadays, possibly rare for an IndyCar driver as well, as the first 4 races, as mentioned before, Bourdais has not finished, of course, and he's still yet to get a point on the board. He currently leads the race, and he's looking to stay there for these remaining 23 laps of the race here at Detroit, race 1, of course. At this stage, we'll go through and see at the moment in these remaining 23 laps what the grid will look like for tomorrow. It will be Max Chilton at the moment who will be on pole position with Felix Rosenqvist second, JR Hildebrand third, Graham Rahal fourth, Alexander Rossi fifth, Marco Andretti sixth, and then it will be Helio Castroneves 7th, Fernando Alonso in 8th, followed by Simon Pagenaud in 9th, and then it will obviously be Bourdais who will be in 10th place for the grid, and then 11th will be Tony Kanaan, followed by Robert Wickens, and then of course Pietro Fittipaldi with the retirements following suit as well. As Andretti now tries to get up close to lapping Pietro Fittipaldi. Rossi though trying to get onto him as best as possible as he makes his way around the long swooping right-hander now then. As he just comes off the turn, getting as close to the wall as possible. Around the double left-hander we will go on the racetrack now then, into the hairpin there. Then goes Alexander Rossi. As now we will approach the final 2 corners on the racetrack. Through the right and then into the final corner goes Alexander Rossi. And now heading down the pit straight goes Rossi now. Then we'll see the gap then between himself and Marco Andretti in front, who's still stuck behind Pietro Fittipaldi's Meccano car. And let's see the gap now then. And the gap being between the pair of them as they go down the straight heading down towards turn 3 is 2.4 seconds. So that's how it looks at the moment, as we have 22 laps remaining here at Detroit. And so far the top 2 keeping themselves pretty much keeping each other honest at the moment. We'll have a look and see the gap this time by as they make their way around the final corner on the racetrack, and the gap between Pagenaud and Bourdais this time buys and make their way down towards turn 1 on the racetrack. 21 laps to go now then in this race. We're on lap 50 of 70 here at race 1 of Detroit. Through turn 2 we go. It's 2.3 seconds, so that's that for him really. Pagenaud continued to drop back a bit from Bourdais as we now look at the gap between Alonso and Pagenaud. It's down to 9 seconds, so Alonso starting to catch up rapidly to the back of Pagenaud. So from the last time we checked on that gap, which was a couple of laps ago, Alonso has gained 1.6 seconds out of Pagenaud's lead. So Alonso currently flying at the moment as he tries to gain onto second placeman Simon Pagenaud by the end of the race now then, as he makes his way around that left-hander, flicking the car through the right and now making his way out towards the end of sector 1 as he continues to chase after Simon Pagenaud for second place in this race now then, as Alonso makes his way around the quick left-hander now then on the racetrack, as Castroneves is looking quite quiet in 4th place at the moment. 2.2 seconds the gap between Rossi and Andretti at the moment, as Andretti tries his best to try and close that gap in front at the moment. The man who won the first race of the season at Bar Motorsports Park, but in the recent few races Rossi has been struggling, but it seems he's now in a decent position and could get some good points on the board by the end of the race. So now we head down towards the flat out left-hander on the track, as it looks like the manufacturer's points for Chevrolet are only going to be going towards 5th and 6th, as the top 4 consist of Honda drivers, with Bourdais leading from Pagenaud second, Alonso third, and then Castroneves in 4th position. And then you have to go down to 5th to get the first Chevy-powered car of the race, which will be Andretti. Then he's followed by Rossi using 6th. And then they're getting followed by a Honda-powered Martini, who's trying to close them down, Graham Rahal. As now, right, on the final 2 turns on the racetrack we will go. And let's see what the gap is like between Rossi and Andretti now then. So now they will come down towards turn 1 and 2 on the racetrack. And so through the left hander we go. The gap between them being, let's have a look, heading down this straight now then. The gap being 1.9 seconds. So Rossi's taken 3 tenths out of Andretti's lead that time by. And it's not like Andretti's stuck behind Fittipaldi. It's just Rossi's just better than him on pure pace so far in this race. As now he goes around the quick left-hander now then, trying to get as close to the wall as possible. Around turn number, I think it's turn 7, I might be wrong, I'm not quite 100% sure. It might be turn 6 actually. As Rossi continues to try and close down the gap between himself and Marco Andretti. At the moment, as he swoops his way around the long swooping right-hander now then, through the left we go. As now we will approach the double left-hander in a little bit now then, into the hairpin we go. As now heading down the straight we go on the track. And now up towards the final 2 turns we go then. As around the final corner and onto the pit straight. Let's see the gap then between Rossi and Andretti. And so we now go down towards turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack. And let's see the gap between the pair of them at this stage. So now they go down the hill towards turn 3 on the racetrack. And it's still 1.9. So both Rossi and Andretti possibly lapping around about the same pace as each other at this stage of the race. As Pagenaud is still struggling to try and gain onto Bourdais in front at the moment. Bourdais continuing to have quite a lead in front. As Bourdais now about to start lap 53 of 70 here at Detroit. So we now have specifically, let's have a look. We now have specifically 18 laps to go here at race 1 of Detroit. Let's see the gap between Alonso and Pagenaud at this time now then, as Alonso tries to continue to try and chomp down on the gap between himself and Simon now then through turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack we go. And it's 9.1 seconds, so that's what the gap is at the moment. He hasn't really taken much out of Pagenaud, but he is still gaining onto the Frenchman at the moment from the last time we checked on him. As now we go around the section of corners we will go on the racetrack. As in fact, I think actually Alonso has lost time to Pagenaud. I do apologise. From the last time we checked, Alonso actually lost a tenth to Simon Pagenaud, so Pagenaud probably just starting to pick up the pace a little bit at the moment. And now we'll check back on this battle for 5th place at the moment, and it's down to 1.7 seconds. So Rossi has gained 2 tenths on Andretti that time by. As the Andretti still not been able to get close enough to pull a lap on Pietro Fittipaldi and then put a car between himself and Rossi. Through the section of corners now then we will go on the racetrack through the left-hander, and then into the right we will soon go. And so now we go down towards the quick left-hander. As you can definitely tell from this angle how close Rossi is to the back of Andretti now then. As he's still got plenty of time to get hold of him in his remaining few laps. As now Rossi getting as close to the wall on the outside as possible. We're 7 minutes away now from the 2:30 mark, for anybody wondering. As we come out of the hairpin now, they're heading down towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack now then. Through the second to last corner, and then into the final corner goes Alexander Rossi as he goes down the straight, heading in towards the first 2 turns on the racetrack. And let's see what the gap is like this time around between him and the Adrenaline in front. And now we have 17 laps remaining in here at Detroit, round turn 2. As had to dip on the brakes a little bit there, but it's down to 1.5 seconds, so another 2 tenths Rossi took out of Andretti last time by, down to 1.5 seconds. As Andretti still unable to get out of Fittipaldi in front. Probably Fittipaldi is busy trying to chase down, well, I don't know why, because he's too far back to challenge Wickings at the moment. And as Andretti still continuing to lose time at the moment. Sorry for that drop of frame there. As now heading down towards the flat out left-hander. We will soon go on the racetrack as Rossi will soon swoop around the long right-hander as he continues to try and cut the gap down in front between himself and Marco Andretti at this stage. Around the double left-hander we go as we go into the hairpin, and now heading down the straight towards the final two corners on the racetrack, and we'll have a look and see what the gap is like this time by as we go down the long straight on the racetrack now then, and the gap between them, let's have a look as we go in towards the first few turns on the racetrack. The gap between Andretti and Rossi is now up towards turn 2, the gap being 1.4 seconds, so only a tenth that time around Rossi took out of Andretti's lead to make it down to 1.4. As now approaching the next section of corners on the racetrack, and now into the next right-hander we go as Rossi gets close to the walls as possible. Remember, those barriers do have teeth, of course. We saw that a little bit earlier in the race with Ryan Hunter-Reay as well, collecting Ed Jones and then collecting Pietro Fittipaldi, which caused him to change his front wing first time around, and then Pietro, unseen by the cameras, lost his front wing again, so he had to pit for a second time. But he is inheriting 13th place, so that will probably be where he starts tomorrow if it stays like this. So he's still going to pick up some decent points, but still not great for Panasonic Macaro Motorsport at this stage. As now into the hairpin now then goes Alexander Rossi, and he's getting closer now to the back of Andretti, as Andretti's still not close enough to get onto the back of Fittipaldi and lap the Macaro car. Around the final two turns on the racetrack we go, and let's see the gap between Andretti and Rossi on this next lap now then, as we will soon approach turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack through turn 1 and then into turn 2 on the racetrack. Quickly around the corners, 1.2 seconds, so another 2 tenths that time around Rossi took out of him. He's continuing to gain onto Andretti in front of him at the moment, as we will now approach turn number 3 right now then, as now into the section of corners we will now go, and now through the left-hander we go on the racetrack around the right-hander, as now Rossi continues to try and close on the guys in front of him at the moment, as now we will approach the left-hander through the left, and then into the long sweeping right-hander we will go, and so now through the left-hander, getting as close to the wall as possible, as we will go through the double left-hander into the hairpin, and now heading down towards the final 2 turns. We will soon go on the racetrack, and at the moment Rossi still trying to put some pressure on Andretti in front of him if he can. Around the final turn and onto the pit straight we go on the racetrack, and let's see now then what the gap is like between the pair of them on this lap, as we have 14 laps to go here at race 1 at Detroit. The gap between Andretti and Rossi this time by through turn 2 we go, as Rossi tries to break that a little bit later, down to 1.1, so only a tenth that time by Rossi took out on that lap, as Andretti still hasn't been able to lap Pietro Fittipaldi's Panasonic Macaro Motorsport car at the moment in this race. Through the right-hander we go, as Rossi tries to get up close to the wall as possible, round the left-hander, as now Rossi tries to get up close to Andretti at the moment, as now we go down towards the flat-out left-hander in a little bit, as Rossi tries to grab 5th place from the Adrenaline car, as these two are still a long way away behind the leaders at this stage, as now coming around these section of corners through the double left-hander, and we'll have a look and see on this lap and check what the gap is again between these two. It looks like Rossi again getting closer on this lap. Has he got it to under a second now between himself and Marco Andretti? Let's wait and see as he just goes around the final corner and onto the pit straight, and now heading down the straight now then, and let's see what the gap is like between Rossi and Andretti this time by, as they will go down towards turn 1 and up to turn 2, and the gap with 13 laps to go up to 1.2. So in fact, Andretti's responded and he's got the gap back up to 1.2 seconds. So getting a 10th that time by Rosenqvist. Looking like he's starting to challenge Hildebrand in front, the championship leader for 7th place. So Rosenqvist absolutely flying at the moment. The gap between him and Hildebrand at this stage is under a second, so 0.9 seconds. The gap between them. Here's Bourdais still continuing to have a comfortable gap in front of Simon Pagenaud as he starts lap 59 of the race now then. So 12 laps to go for race leader and defending champion Sebastian Bourdais as he just comes out of turn 2 on the racetrack there then. Alonso, has he been able to gain a little bit on Pagenaud from the last time we checked on them? Through turn 2 we will go as he comes off the turn. He hasn't actually, as it's up to 9.5 seconds between the pair of them, so maybe Alonso will have to settle in for the rest of the race and hold off to this podium, this 3rd place he's currently inheriting at the moment. As Rosenqvist had a go at Hildebrand into that first part of that double left-hander, but it didn't quite work out as he's lost some time now and will have to gain all that time back onto Hildebrand if he wants to grab some from the championship leader. And let's see the gap between Rossi and Andretti this time by as they go around turns 1 and 2. Through turn 2 we go, and the gap between them being 1.1 seconds. So Rossi's got the gap down again to 1.1 as it was a couple of laps ago. So he gains a 10th again on Marco Andretti as Rosenqvist lost time as a result of Hildebrand shutting the door on him there into that first part of the double left-hander before going into the hairpin. And Rosenqvist now then trying to put some pressure again onto Hildebrand, trying to catch that gap back up that he lost. As a result, the Chevy-powered Red Rose Racing car still trying to attack him in front of this at this stage now then. Around these section of corners we will now go as they just come around these section of corners on the racetrack. And Rosenqvist now then still trying to get up to the back of Hildebrand if he can, and still trying to put the championship leader under a lot of pressure at the moment. Round the long sweeping right-hander we go. And so now round the left-hander, getting as close to the outside wall as possible as they now go around the double left-hander and into the hairpin. We will now go as they will go down the straight heading in towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack. Let's see the gap between Rossi and Andretti this time by as we have 11 laps remaining in this race through turn 2. As we're into the closing stage of this race, back up to 1.2, so both of them pretty much lapping around about the same pace as each other at this stage. As now into turns 1 and 2, what's the gap between Rosenqvist and Hildebrand? Through turn 2 we go. And the gap being, let's have a look, as they go down this straight, under a second again, so 0.9 seconds the gap between Rosenqvist and Hildebrand. Last time it was under a second. Rosenqvist had an attempt at Hildebrand into that double left-hander. Whether that will happen again on this lap, we'll wait and see. As now they just go around these section of corners out on the racetrack, and so now heading down towards the quick left-hander they will soon go. And again, Rosenqvist trying to get within the slipstream of Hildebrand at the moment. And now around the long swooping right-hander into the left he goes. And so now through the left-hander we go on the track as now we go around the hairpin again. Rosenqvist still trying to get hold of Hildebrand in front of him at this stage as they go around the final corner and heading down the straight now then before approaching turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack, and now heading down towards those first 2 turns. Let's see the gap this time by as Rosenqvist tries to gain closer to the championship leader coming out of turn 2 as they go down this straight now then, and it's up to a second. So Hildebrand's actually responding and he's actually got it up to a second, so he's starting to lap a little bit quicker now than what Felix Rosenqvist is in the Red Rose Racing car. But Rosenqvist is still not going to give up and he's still going to try and push hard to try and get hold of him. In front of the moment, Rossi still not really getting onto Andretti as much as anticipated at the moment. Andretti doing a good job keeping the gap consistent between himself and Rossi at the moment. Fittipaldi still not giving way at the moment, and Andretti probably getting a little bit frustrated that Fittipaldi is not getting out of the way at the moment, and you thought that probably would have helped Rossi out a little bit, but it clearly hasn't. The gap between second to third now up to 9.7 seconds. So Alonso continuing to lose a bit of time now to the top two. As here is the race leader, Sebastian Bourdais, still leading the way at the moment as he just goes around the left-hander on the track. And at least now Bourdais will be able to get some points on the board, because even if he does retire now, which we're not hoping he will, but if he does retire now, he would have completed 90% of the race distance, which would have been enough for his first points of the season. But Bourdais is definitely after more. He wants the victory here at Belle Isle Park to kick off what has been a disappointing start to the defence of his title, as now Bourdais starts lap 63 of 70 here at Race 1 Detroit. 8 laps to go for Sebastian Bourdais in the EMR car, as he now just goes around turn 2 on the racetrack now then, as he will go down towards turn number 3 very soon now then, as Pagenaud tries to get hold of Sebastian Bourdais in front of him at the moment. Here is Fernando Alonso currently in third, as he tries to get hold of Wickens in front of him at this stage. Here comes Helio Castroneves now then, as he will soon go into turns number 1 and 2. As now he heads down the hill. And 16.9 seconds he is behind Alonso at this stage. And now Bourdais still leading the way. They've still got a comfortable gap. The two SICs haven't really been battling each other as much as we have anticipated. And in fact, the top two are not that far behind these guys in terms of lapping them. So at this stage then, Chilton looking good for a top 10 finish and for pole position for race 2 tomorrow, as he's currently inheriting 10th place. Of course, just to let you know, the grid for race 2 tomorrow is determined by the results of today's race, with the top 10 getting reversed, which is why at this stage Chilton will be on pole for race 2 tomorrow. As now, heading into the first 2 turns on the racetrack we go. So now we just come off the turn, heading down towards turn number 3, as now we're on lap 64 of 70. So we now have specifically 7 laps remaining here at Belle Isle Park, race 1 of the weekend. As now let's see what Rossi and Andretti are getting up to in the closing stages of this race. And as you can see, Rossi still not really up with Andretti as much as he would have wanted at the moment. As now in towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack we will go. Around the final corner and onto the pit straight. As now Ross, let's see the gap anyway between him and Andretti at this stage as they go into turns 1 and 2 on the track. Through turn 1 and then into turn 2. And the gap being 1.3 seconds. So again, Andretti starting to stretch the gap a little bit between himself and Rossi at the moment. Rosenqvist still keeping the gap consistent between himself and championship leader Hildebrand, as they just come out of turn 2 on the racetrack, and it's up to 1.1 seconds for the last time we checked. So Hildebrand starting to stretch away from the Swede, as he looks good to inherit 7th place in this race here at Belle Isle Park in Detroit, Michigan. As meantime now then, Bourdais coming up to the 2 SICs to try and lap. If he gets held up too much, it could help out Pagenaud get up close, and then we could have an almighty scrap for the lead in the final stages here at race 1 of Detroit. Around turn 4 we go, and then into turns 5 and 6 will go the defending champion. 6 laps remaining for Sebastian Bourdais as he just goes around these section of corners. And now heading down towards the flat out left-hander we will soon go. As now through the left-hander we go, as he just goes around the long swooping right-hander now then we go. As he's just trying to get up close to the wall as best as possible as he go around the double left-hander on the racetrack, as he just came out of the hairpin now. He's now come up to the back of both SIC cars, as now around the final 2 turns we go. Bourdais about to start lap 66 of 70, so 5 laps remaining for the defending champion, as Rahal continues to lose time to Rosenqvist and may have to settle for 9th by the end of it. Maybe Canaan could use Bourdais as a bit of a decoy to try and get up close to Chilton and try and grab that pole position for race 2 off him, as now heading down the straight now then Bourdais now coming up to lap the two SICs. First of all, he laps Tony Kanaan and does so with ease. And now next one will be Max Chilton in front, as now he just comes around these section of corners. And Chilton now then getting a car between himself and Kanaan, but Kanaan, as mentioned, could use it as a bit of a decoy. There's second place man Simon Pagenaud looking secure in second place. You have to hope for something bad to happen to Bourdais in front, or maybe a hold up from these SIC guys to have any chance of the victory here today. As now Pagenaud goes around the flat out left-hander. We've already passed the half-past-2 mark for anybody wondering. We passed that 10 minutes ago for anybody wondering. As now Pagenaud just getting close to the wall there, as now heading down towards the final two turns will go Simon Pagenaud, as Sebastian Bourdais, as he tries to chase after Max Chilton to pull a lap on him, is about to start lap 67, so 4 laps to go for Sebastian Bourdais in the EMR, as Rossi continues to lose a little bit more time to Marco Andretti at the moment. And so he's just probably now possibly settling into the rest of the race now then, and just letting the laps just count down really, as he now just goes through the right-hander on the racetrack. As out goes Graham Rahal now in the Martini. So Graham Rahal has retired from 9th place. What on earth has happened to Graham Rahal? He should be classified anyway because he's completed 90% of the race distance, and he's done the exact same mistake as what JR Hildebrand did earlier on in the race. Rahal has cost himself a 9th place finish, so both SICs will find themselves in the top 10 and will lock themselves on the front row if it stays like this. Graham Rahal out. He should be classified anyway because he has done 90% of the race distance, but we're now down to 12 runners in this race. As now look at this, it's definitely held Hildebrand up, and it's given Rosenquist an advantage to try and get hold of him for 7th place. As now Bourdais, who's passed the crash car as well, has put a lap on Chilton. Luckily for him, didn't get held up at all, as now there's 2 cars between himself and Simon Pagenaud. As now it has brought Kanaan a tad bit closer now to the back of Chilton, so they're now fighting it out for 9th place. But at this stage, it will be Tony Kanaan who will take pole position for tomorrow's race. As now going around the final corner now, then goes Rosenquist as he tries to find a way through on JR Hildebrand. He's going to look to the inside. We've got a battle for 7th place emerging now then. Did Rossi take full advantage? No, he didn't. He's still quite a far bit back from these guys, as he's still in 6th place. Rosenquist now then wasn't able to get him into turn 1, but now has a good chance to get him into turn 2. He's in the slipstream of the championship leader. He tries to have a look to the inside. He'll have to try and outbrake him because he's not quite alongside Hildebrand, but Hildebrand shuts the door and holds on to 7th place at the moment in this race. Bourdais, 3 laps to go for him now then in this race. 3 laps remaining for Sebastian Bourdais. Rosenquist still trying to chase down Hildebrand for what will be 7th place, as he just comes off the turn, heading down towards the flat out left-hander. We will soon go on the racetrack. Flat out go the pair of them, as Rosenquist tries to get him in the braking zone now then. And now around the left-hander we go, as Rosenquist gets as close to the wall as possible. Round the double left-hander we go, as they both just go around the hairpin now then. And now heading down towards the last 2 turns on the racetrack, as Rosenquist still trying to find a way through on Hildebrand, but it looks like now Hildebrand has been able to pull a bit of a gap from Felix Rosenquist, and is able to just stay in front at this stage now then, as they go down towards turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack, as Rosenquist doesn't appear to be close enough to get hold of Hildebrand as time buys. It's now up to half a second again, as Bourdais starts the penultimate lap here at Detroit, Michigan, as he just goes around turns 1 and 2 for the penultimate time today, as he just comes out of the turn now, then heading down towards turns number 3. Sorry for that little drop of frame you just saw there. Now it's Pagenaud's turn to try and get hold of the battling SICs, as now Kanaan looks to the inside of Max Chilton. Can he grab 9th from his own teammate now? Then Kanaan on the inside of Max Chilton. Can he pull the move off? And no, not quite. Chilton just able to hang it around the outside and hold on to 9th. This holds off Pagenaud a lot more, and now allows Bourdais to pull away a bit, as Pagenaud now puts a lap now on Tony Kanaan's SIC. So that's that really as far as they are concerned, as they just come off the turn now then on the track. Alonso looking good for third, and to get E-Power's second consecutive podium this season, as now Andretti at last has put a lap on Fittipaldi, so he's now put a car between himself and Alexander Rossi. Round the final 2 turns, then we go again. Rosenqvist still too far behind to get out of J.R. Hildebrand in front of him at this stage. He's going to have to settle for 8th place now then, as they go down towards turns 1 and 2 on the racetrack. Meantime, here is Sebastian Bourdais in the East Midlands racing car, who's just coming down towards the pit straight, and Sebastian Bourdais is about to start his final lap here at race 1 of Detroit. It has been a fantastic race for the Frenchman. He started in 6th place, got a fantastic start, took advantage of things that were happening during the race, and once he got hold of the lead, no one was able to stop him. If he can just keep this up, he's looking good to take his 2nd career victory, along with East Midlands Racing's 2nd career victory as well, and finally get his championship underway after what has been a poor start for his defence of his title. He hasn't scored a point yet this season, and that looks like it's all about to change today, as now Bourdais is just going around turn number 6 there for the final time, as he has just got a comfortable lead in front of fellow compatriot Simon Pagenaud, as you can just see in the background, is about to put a lap on Max Chilton, who's still been able to hold off Tony Kanaan. So at this stage it looks like it will be Kanaan who will be on pole for race number 2 tomorrow here at Detroit for another 70 laps here at Belle Isle Park. And it should be very interesting with both SICs locking out the front row. Sorry about that. As you can see there, Robert Wickens has just retired from the race. So what has happened to Robert Wickens, as I've got my puppy in my lap, so sorry if you can hear her moaning, and he's got an engine failure. An engine failure has taken care of Robert Wickens' race, and well, that's race over for Wickens. He should be classified anyway because he has done 90% of the race distance, but it's game over for Robert Wickens. I'm sorry if you can hear my puppy moaning at the moment. But here, meantime, here comes Sebastian Bourdais. He's coming around the final 2 corners, and after a tricky start to the season, nothing is going to stop him. As they come down the straight, it is going to be Sebastian Bourdais who wins at race 1 here in Detroit. Congratulations to him and the East Midlands Racing team. He finally gets points on the board. He takes his and East Midlands Racing's 2nd career victory, and finally kickstarts his championship. Simon Pagenaud finishes in 2nd. It's 9th for Chilton, 10th for Kanaan. So Kanaan will start on pole for tomorrow's race. It is going to be Alonso 3rd. Castroneves is going to cross the line in 4th position. Alonso gets his first ever IFMC IndyCar podium. E-Power's 2nd consecutive. Helio Castroneves is going to cross the line in 4th. So big points for East Midlands Racing as he just crosses the line there then. Sorry about that, as it's 5th for Marco Andretti, 11th for Pietro Fittipaldi, 6th for Alexander Rossi, 7th for J.R. Hildebrand, just finishing in front of Felix Rosenqvist, who finishes in 8th. And there you have it then. In the end, Sebastian Bourdais wins here for race 1 at Detroit. And finally, East Midlands Racing have something to celebrate after what has been a tricky start to the season. So there you have it then, guys. After all of that, here was the results of race 1 here in Detroit. Sebastian Bourdais won the race, finally getting some points on the board, with Simon Pagenaud in 2nd. Fernando Alonso gets his first ever IFMC IndyCar podium, and E-Power's 2nd in a row. Helio Castroneves was 4th, Marco Andretti 5th, Alexander Rossi 6th, followed by J.R. Hildebrand in 7th, Felix Rosenqvist 8th, Max Chilton 9th, with Tony Kanaan in 10th. He'll start on pole for tomorrow's race. Pietro Fittipaldi 11th, Robert Wickens classified in 12th, and Graham Rahal classified in 13th. And here are the retirements then. So the retirements of the race were Scott Dixon, and if you scroll down the rest of them, Gabby Chavez, Joseph Newgarden, Juan Pablo Montoya, Will Power, Takuma Sato, James Hinchcliffe, Ryan Hunter-Reay and Ed Jones. All of them failed to finish in today's race. A majority of them being crashes, 2 of them being transmission problems, and 1 of them being an engine failure. So there you have it then, guys. That is the results of the race. Let's see who set the fastest lap of the race then, who's going away with the bonus point. And it was Sebastian Bourdais with a 1 minute 17.564. So along with the 50 points he gets for the victory, he also gets the bonus points for the fastest lap of the race. He was 1/10 quicker than second place man Simon Pagenaud in the end there then. So there you have it then, guys. That has been it for race 1 here in Detroit. I hope you've enjoyed it. It has been a very exciting race here in Detroit, and EMR finally get some points on the board to finally kick off the defense of their titles. But there you have it then, guys. That has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. We're not done yet for this weekend, because tomorrow we have race 2 here in Detroit. The first time we have 2 races in Detroit, just like in real life. So tomorrow, we will see you guys tomorrow then for race 2 here at Belle Isle Park in Detroit, Michigan, for another 70 laps, which will see Tony Kanaan on pole position with Max Chilton second, and in third place on the grid will be Felix Rosenquist. So do look out for that one. But until then, guys, that has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much for watching. I've been JWF1, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at a later time of 2:30 PM BST due to the MotoGP race at Aragon for another 70 laps here at Belle Isle Park in Detroit, Michigan for race 2 of the weekend. Until then, take care.